Listener advisory. This is just a stupid podcast we're doing for shits and giggles, so we apologize to any of you poor bastards that have to be subjected to, well, you know, all of this. If you stick around long enough, I'm sure you'll see what I mean. If you find dark humor and discussing awful shit with a bit of levity distasteful, well, how do you exist? Seriously, you must have a secret, and I don't even want it. But really, this podcast will not be for you. And you'd probably be better off listening to any of the more somber-toned true crime podcasts that are available. For those of you still listening, you sick and twisted fucks, welcome to the worst. If we did this right, hopefully you won't like yourself by the end, but you'll laugh. Hello and welcome to The Worst, the podcast of everything that is the worst. I almost forgot my name. Jesus. I'm your host, Mark.
That's staying.
And sitting next to me is my lovely and talented wife and co-host, Gina, who's healing so fucking well. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So, yeah, we have Gina back.
Woo.
Woo. And, yeah, everything's good. You're healing well. Your voice is pretty much normal. If anything, you just have a little less range for how much you can talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about it. But it's not like you're mute either.
No, but
yeah.
I get tired faster.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, you're well enough to do this, so I'm very happy about that. On that note, how are you doing this fine evening?
Not terribly at all.
And that's also good to hear, because, once again, you're still in recovery.
Yeah, it's been, 10 days?
Yeah, it's been less than 2 weeks. I think you're dead on with 10 days. So, yeah, very happy. Mm-hmm. Well, we had a lot in it. I mean, if things were really bad for up to 4 weeks, like, this could be up to a month of some rough recovery. And we had talked about we might have to make the bedroom a place where just, have animals on you. And within the first couple days, you're like, I got this.
Yeah, I can just sleep on the couch. It's fine.
Yeah, this sucks, but I got this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Want to hear a story?
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, we've got a fucking good one. This I just kind of ran into, just kind of scrolling around looking for weird shit that wasn't in America, because true crime can get really American-focused very quickly if you don't look out for that, because America does such a good job of covering its true crimes. You know what I mean? I don't think it's a matter of there are more. I think it's a matter of they just have such a true crime press that when stuff happens, it's like, well,
if it bleeds, it leads.
Here's 20 news articles about this fucking mass murder if you want to know about it. Like you just said, if it bleeds, it leads. So, I was specifically looking for somewhere else, and I ended in one of our favorite countries. I landed in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a mass murder in Australia, and from start to finish, it's just pure Australia. Like, this couldn't be a more Australian crime for so many fucking reasons. So tonight, we're talking about the story of Douglas Crabbe, and in short, how he drunkenly drove a semi-truck into the side of a very small bar.
I mean, who hasn't done that?
I have not at all. Think of Always Sunny when they try to trash Dee's car. But with a giant Mack truck with a load attached. It's not just the cab. It's the cab and a full fucking, tractor trailer hitch thing. You know what I'm trying to say? The whole fucking nine into the side of a very small bar. This would leave 5 people dead and 16 wounded. And like I said, just from start to finish, this is fucking chaos. It's Australia. It's a bar. It's a truck. Get ready.
I mean, you got drunk people hit by a truck in a bar.
That's just it. Not outside the bar. No.
Oh, no.
No,
Indoors.
One woman's at the fucking jukebox, apparently looking for a song.
Jesus.
And then bam. Oh, we're going to get into that. There's some fucking really rough eyewitness accounts.
And all I'm picturing is the interior of Gus's, because to me that's a bar.
I could see that. Gus's is for listeners who aren't in Halifax, because no one listens to us in Halifax.
I mean, Amy does.
I mean, I shouldn't say that. We have about half dozen people.
Yeah.
That's not
Some
nothing.
of our friends do.
But Gus's is a very small rock, punk, metal bar in Halifax. It's actually where we met. And yeah, it is not very big. It is just kind of, you go through the doors, you go through the airlock part, and it's just a big, flat, open area. It's not very... But this place is even smaller than that.
And I mean, Gus's is small.
But
I
imagine...
feel like their capacity is, what, like 250?
Oh, if that.
Might be 150. It's pretty low.
Yeah, I would say... I was thinking more towards 2. I would say 150 to 2. 250, that place would be bursting. Like, people would be coming out of the windows like, holy shit, it's packed in here tonight. So on the... Jesus. Love it when I blow it on the first sentence of the actual script.
You forgot your name tonight, honey, so...
I misspelled my own last name the other day at work, so, you know. How many eyes are in this fucker? Close enough.
It is what it is.
On the night of August 18th to the 19th, because this is kind of one of those crossover between midnight into the early morning hours, 1983, 36-year-old Douglas Crabbe committed one of the worst mass killings in Australian history. And there are multiple factors that I find really make this sucker stand out. First, there's the setting, as... Okay, this is as in the middle of the Australian outback as you can possibly fucking get. This is not around the coast where there are people and shit. This is so far in the outback, and we're going to talk about the geography a little bit. But just in general, because you'll know this one, it's called Uluru, or it's also known by Ayers Rock. This is if you've ever seen the giant brown sandstone monolith that's in the middle of nowhere, Australia, and it's, you know, a tourist attraction and very important to the Aboriginal people. That's where this happens. It's at the foot of that fucking rock, which when you see it on a map is literally in the middle of Australia.
Yeah.
So that's where it happens. So... Bullseye. And this is where it's really worth talking about, because unless you live there, not a lot of people realize this. Australia is fucking huge.
Yeah.
It is, we lose scale of it because it's in the ocean by itself. It's not next to other countries where you can look and comparatively say, like Canada and the US, you can look and say, okay, Canada's a little bigger, but these are comparative sized.
Especially width.
Exactly. Oh, especially with the width. And then it's also hard to tell when you get into the Mercator map and how it distorts in north. But anyway, you can say they're comparable, right?
Yeah.
With Australia all out there by itself, it's really hard to tell the scale of it. But I found a couple maps which really kind of highlight it. I'm going to post those in our Facebook group. And it's about as big as the States. So keep that in mind. And another place where that shows up is how, like, this is a little sidetrack, but how everyone thinks New Zealand is right next to Australia.
It's really not.
Wellington, New Zealand, and Sydney, Australia are 2,200 kilometers or 1,350 miles apart. Seattle and San Diego are 2,000 kilometers or 1,255 miles apart.
Sounds about right.
So they're further apart than Seattle and San Diego on the U.S. West Coast. Just for scale. But yeah, Australia is fucking huge. And that does come into play where this horrible crime happens in the middle of nowhere. It takes a long time for proper people to show up to help because there's no one fucking there. Like, this is the equivalent in Canada of being in northern Quebec in a bar and someone just drives their fucking truck into it. I'm trying to think of something in the States. Take one of your, like, somewhere in the desert. I don't even think that's enough.
Right? Like, where is it really unpopulated enough for this to happen in the States?
Wyoming. Get in the mountains.
Yeah, that's...
Get some mountains going in there on top of your population. You know what I mean? Like, but you would have to be extremely remote for this to be comparable. And we're definitely going to talk about that. Second, there's the means that Douglas Crabbe decided to do this mass attack with. Usually with this type of thing, you're talking about a gun of some type. And while Australia, it's not the US for its gun laws, it's definitely not Japan. And on that scale, it's much closer to the US. Like, most US listeners understand this, but you have to realize that in America, you guys are outliers for your gun laws. Because Australia actually has very liberal gun laws. Like you were saying, you can get hunting rifles, blah, blah, blah. Until Martin Bryant in the late 90s, you can get semi-automatic. It's very close to the US, pretty much. Of course, then they had a massive massacre and really kind of reined it in with their gun laws. But, you know, well, I don't want to digress down that.
God, no.
But instead of this, or even, let's be honest, in the early 2000s, there was that big rash of fucking knife attacks in China. Do you remember that? Man, those were nuts.
Why was it always the kindergarten?
It fucking was, too. Or just like, oh, there's a bunch of kids here, and then like, one Chinese dude walked in. I am no fan of
children, but why? Why is it always like 5-year-olds? What the fuck did they do to you?
Yeah, seriously, though.
And it's someone who... I still have no reason to kill them.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can just take that with, I hate to put it this way, but the difference between high schools getting shot up and Sandy Hook. Like, Sandy Hook just hit harder, because you're talking about...
6-year-olds.
Yeah, the elementary school kids. Like, come on, man. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you still did nothing.
Especially with the high school ones, where it's usually someone who just was in that high school or just got out of that high school and has a lot of animosity. I remember high school. I get it. Don't do it, but I get it.
Yeah, anyway, right? I get the animosity, but holy shit, don't do it.
Yeah, seriously, though. You're getting out of there, you're out.
6-year-olds?
Yeah.
What the shit has a 6-year-old done to you, other than be an annoying 6-year-old, which, like, fuck you if you think they need to die for that.
Yeah, just avoid them. That's what we do.
Yeah, close your windows, stay away from them.
But anyway, instead of using the classic gun or the Chinese-style knife... Douglas Crabbe went down what would become the current incel route and decided to drive a very large vehicle into a place where people were. And I should point out, I love that, like, I don't know if they have different types of Mack trucks in Australia because of the size of it and the, you know.
Right.
But they go usually by the term land trains. And a lot of the times, these are double rigs. So you'll have, like, instead of just the one big cargo compartment on the back, you have 2 of those hooked up. And a lot of the times, like from the ones I was seeing, you don't actually have the cargo box. It's just open stuff strapped down. So it seems like you're dragging a lot of heavy fucking shit. And we're going to find out it would have been, considering what he was dragging into that area.
Oof.
Also mentioned that as this is a very rural area, this was a correspondingly small bar and very, very large truck. The truck, in fact, was bigger than the bar. Seriously. In the end, the nose of this truck is at one end of the bar, touching a wall, and the ass end of it is outside the bar.
That makes sense, though, for a double rig.
Yeah. Well, he does take one of the rigs off before doing this, but he just still has one attached.
Even one is still like 40 feet.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is long.
Obviously, this caused complete chaos and carnage in the bar, and when the dust settled, 5 people were dead and at least 16 were injured. Now, these were seriously injured, because it seems like in proper Australian fashion, if you didn't have to go to the hospital, you didn't say you were injured.
Oh, no, it's just bruised up, mate.
Oh, seriously, like we're going to hear from one woman who I don't think is considered one of the seriously injured. Yeah, she fucking was, right. But, you know, you don't make the cut.
I've never played hockey.
Yeah, you did. Of those that survived this attack, it was common to hear that the moment that the truck hit the wall, it was literally like a bomb going off in this place. You know, if it wasn't for the truck, that's what a lot of people would have thought. That was a bomb. But it's kind of obvious when the truck's there. Like, I'm looking at it. Yeah.
Brace yourself for a journey into the darkest corners of human nature with the Mortal Musings Podcast, available wherever you get your podcast. Join host Neil and Megan each week as they travel to the chilling world of true crime and macabre stories. From French socialites with hidden secrets to chilling tales from death row, they leave no stone unturned. They also bring you the strange and intriguing stories of oddities that will leave you questioning your very reality. Each episode of the Mortal Musings Podcast is a roller coaster ride through the bizarre and unsettling. New episodes drop every Wednesday. The Mortal Musings podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and all podcast platforms. If you crave the dark, the mysterious, and the utterly bizarre, you'll want to add the Mortal Musings podcast to your podcast playlist. The Mortal Musings podcast with host Neil and Megan. We take the cases seriously, but not ourselves. Available wherever you get your podcast.
So to start off, let's talk about where this is. Because like I mentioned, this is at literally the foot of the rock called Uluru, or Ayers Rock. This is the huge brown sandstone monolith virtually in the middle of Australia. Now we need to get into a little bit of Australia. Like, everyone sees Australia, the island now. And literally, if you just take the middle of it, that's all you really need to know. But if you need technicalities, this sits in the far southern part of the Northern Territory of Australia, which is a very unpopulated area. The closest town to it is Alice Springs, which is known as like the only town in the outback. It's still 335 kilometers or 208 miles away.
It's just a quick drive.
And when I say largest town in the area, I mean town. We're talking 25,000 people. This is not a city.
No, it's a town.
And to put this into perspective, how big the Northern Territory is, because obviously being northern, it's basically in the center on the north shore of Australia, but then go all the way down to the middle from there. And this territory is the size, it's actually bigger than France, Germany, and the UK combined.
It's also where crocodiles live.
It's where fucking everything lives. Now, to the Aboriginal people of Australia, Uluru was a sacred place, and because of this, Whitey turned it into a tourist attraction by the mid-20th century. I guess be happy they didn't carve the faces of your oppressors into the mountain.
I mean, there's still time.
There still is. We're going to get to a little bit about that, because this part coming up fucking annoys me. Now, anyway, of course, this tourism took its toll on the area, and by the late 70s, even Whitey was like, ooh, we might be fucking this place up for good. Like, we might have to do something here. Having drunken Australians camping at the foot of this fucking sacred mountain turned out not to be the greatest idea.
What?
By the early 80s, basically a plan had come online where a town was planned to be built about 14 kilometers or 8.7 miles from Uluru to serve as a tourist center. Exactly, and this is where all your amenities and shit are, but in the day, you know, you take your bus, you go see the rock. Hi, nice rock. You go back to the motels and the hotels and the shit that's at this tourist center, and this place is known as Uluru. Now, in short, the Northern Territory was actually granted self-government in 1978, and it really wanted to get Uluru up and running because it was a tourist attraction and made them tons of fucking money. Now, this is where it gets to white people and shit. So basically, they made this deal where, okay, we'll give land ownership back to the Aboriginal people on the deal that you lease it back to Parks Australia for 99 years. The Aboriginal people in the area agreed to this on the condition that you cannot let tourists climb fucking Uluru anymore. They literally had like guide chains and ropes there to help people climb it. Yeah. The government agreed to this. No problem. This is, the 70s. We got this. We can stop it. Then they reneged on that, and it finally stopped in 2019.
Well, I mean, we're having fun, and we're white.
At least 37 deaths were reported from climbing the mountain as of 2018. So there might have been more in that last year, but at least 37 fucking people died doing this. And then some of the shit they were doing was terrible. There were reports of people doing a striptease on the mountain, firing off golf balls, of course, going up and having a couple drinks. So it became this big thing. Like, we can't have white people coming and doing that to our sacred mountain anymore, man. Like, seriously. Now, I'm also going to mention this, because how could I not? This crime, so the Douglas Crabbe truck attack occurred very close, as in a short walk away from the site of the infamous Azaria Chamberlain case, a.k.a. a dingo ate my baby.
And it did.
It did. In August 1980, Michael and Linda Chamberlain went camping at the base of Uluru with their 2-month-old daughter, Azaria. I'm just going to run through this quick, because we might do this someday. On the night of the 17th of August, Linda Chamberlain reported that Azaria had been taken from her tent by a dingo. Michael, her husband, backed this, but of course, nobody fucking believed them, especially when Azaria's jumpsuit was found. When was it? It was a week later, about 4 kilometers or 2.5 miles from the tent. Now, there was blood staining around the neck, but, I mean, people just were not buying the dingo story whatsoever. It was a fucking joke.
Yeah, oh, it was a huge joke.
And it became a joke on Seinfeld when Julia Louis-Dreyfus just dropped that fucking line in that broken accent. But did it so well.
She did.
Linda was charged and convicted of the murder of Azaria, while Michael was charged and convicted of being an accessory after the fact. So that's fun.
Right.
After a lot of further investigation, the Chamberlains were exonerated in 1986. So they were convicted in 82, so they spent 4 to 5 years in jail, when it was finally determined that, yeah, no shit, that was a dingo. That was probably a fucking dingo. So yeah, I definitely had to bring that up, that this is basically in the footprint of, it's the same area. It's on the east side of Uluru Rock. Like, yeah, right there. Could have seen it.
Yeah, I was definitely way too young when I first learned about that story, because my parents didn't really ever stop me from watching whatever the hell they were watching.
Oh my god, yeah.
So, I definitely learned about that as it was happening.
Oh, honey. I had a father who let me read any war book that was on the shelf, and then Mom who was telling me about, like, Richard Chase and fucking Jack the Ripper when I was about 10 to 12.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. No, I get ya. Now, 1983 was kind of an in-between time for Uluru and the site, because all the stuff at Yalara was being built, but nothing was up and running yet. So everything is still strewn around the foot of the mountain, and that's where all the shit is, but everything is being moved to this tourist center. And it's because of that that Douglas Crabbe was even in the area in August 1983. That's because Crabbe, and I found this funny, known as Crabby to his friends, which is a great nickname, but Australia, do you just add E to every name and call it a nickname? Pricey, that you? This guy's crabby, and it works for him because he is fucking crabby. Little crabby. Fucking drove it into the wall. Anyway.
You think?
But Crabbe was a trucker, and he had been since, get this, the age of 14. Yep, that's the face I made too, trying to do math.
How the hell does that work?
Now, we have Australian listeners. Maybe the road laws are a little different there, but I can't imagine they're that fucking different.
Yeah, like, I know you can drive a tractor at 14 here, but not a truck.
This would have also been the 60s, though, because this is, 83, and he's 36.
You can see over the wheel.
You got this, kid.
Can you reach the pedals? You're good to go.
Apparently. Now, as this was a very small place, like, the people who actually lived in the area were about 1,000. But, there was tourists, so there was always a lot going on. Which, in a way, in Canada reminds me of Banff.
Yeah.
That you also ended up with a lot of young people working these places, and the nightlife was pretty good for such a small place, because you had tourists there, and you had young people who wanted to do something after their shift. Yeah, so that makes sense. It also made sense because it's so small, and Crabbe, he had been doing this for a while. He was well known by pretty much everyone at the construction site and at Uluru, because he's the trucker. He delivers the construction shit to the construction site.
Yeah, we're used to seeing him.
There's only 1,000 people here. You get used to faces. Now, it also seemed that Crabbe was one of the worst kinds of drunks. Sometimes he'd be fine and friendly and everything would be great. Other times he would be a lewd, aggressive asshole and just be impossible to be near. I hate that type of drunk. If you're going to be a nasty drunk, always be a nasty drunk.
Yeah, be predictable.
I could expect this from this person. I can't take someone who, like, one time is great and you have a great time and the next time is just a complete dickhole. What am I supposed to do with that?
Right.
What are you doing?
I don't want to play the drinking lottery with you.
The drinking lottery. But that's what it is. You don't know what you're getting with this unpredictable drunk.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not someone you want to hang out with.
It's really not. One survivor who we're going to talk about later, she knew Crabbe and would later say, quote, he had a filthy temper. Which I just love that phrasing.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's also the type of guy who would categorically deny that alcohol had any effect on him whatsoever and his actions, despite consistently doing stupid shit when he was drinking. No, I was just, I didn't have enough sleep. No, you were fucking drunk. No, I was sleep deprived.
Yeah, I was just tired.
Just fucking, he's one of the, and it's going to show up in a different way later. So he's an asshole. Fuck, I hate this guy.
You're not triggered at all.
No, just wait. In the months leading up to the truck attack in Uluru, Crabbe had been involved in 2 incidents that kind of show what kind of drunk and person he really was. In February 1983, Crabbe was drinking at a roadhouse in Tennant Creek, Australia. So this is the outback. He's drinking at a fucking roadhouse.
In the outback.
And the name of this place, wait for it, 3 Ways. Now I'm going to show pictures of this, because what they mean is you can get gas, you can get food, you can get a motel. That's your 3-way. They're not talking about 3-way sex.
No, of course not.
But still.
Yeah.
I'm also pointing out this is the type of roadhouse where Patrick Swayze would get his ass fucking handed to him.
Roadhouse.
Early 1980s roadhouse in outback Australia. You know AC/DC is cranked 24/7, excessively loud. Actually, just keep AC/DC in mind as the soundtrack to everything else that happens here.
I can work with that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I have a theory about what actually happened. Now, Crabbe had been drinking at this roadhouse, although he wasn't sure how much he had drunk that night. And, of course, he later denied that whatever I drank didn't affect me in the things that happened.
I can hold my liquor.
Yeah.
Greetings, Mental Illness Theatre fans. Looking for more spine-chilling tales of true crime to thrill you?
Then step aboard the Murder Coaster.
I'm Krista.
And I'm Matthew.
And every week we bring you hour-plus deep dives into history's most bizarre and brutal crime stories.
So strap in.
Keep your hands and feet inside the ride.
And take a trip on
the Murder Coaster.
Murder Coaster Podcast. Available everywhere you listen to podcasts.
So, at the gas station part of this place, 3 Ways, Crabbe said that 3 youths were harassing one of the attendants, and he tried to intervene and things escalated. Now, this is from the actual court document, because I fucking love this part. This was in a court document. According to the respondent, 3 youths in a car were giving a Bowser attendant a hard time by language and spinning the wheels around and forwards on the driveway. I just love a young Bowser.
Right.
The respondent told them they were a bunch of hoons and they started on him with language. They asked him what he was going to do about it. Provoked in that way, the respondent went over to the car and grabbed a youth through the window. That's the only part of the court document, but the fact that we have young Bowser, a bunch of hoons started on him with language. Like, I love Australia. Of course, that's something you would put in an official court document.
Right.
So this part's more in, like, my own description. Crabbe started by assaulting, like, one of the people inside the car, and he started, like, literally trying to pull him out. When he couldn't get him out through the window, he opened the door, and when he did this, I mean, he yanked it open past, like, where it's supposed to go. He's pulling it backwards, basically.
Yeah.
Now, someone in the car said, "Don't dent the car, it cost me $1,800, or something to that. He wasn't sure about the amount, but something like, "Don't trash my car, it cost me X amount." To this, Crabbe responded, "I'll fucking dent the car, all right." And then he got up on the hood of the car, jumped on it, and then jumped on the roof of the car and kept jumping on it.
I mean, you told me not to, so I did.
I also like, well, apparently while he was doing this, one of the people in the car tried to get out and run away, and he tried to chase after them. Stopped and took his fucking work boots off because he was like, they were too heavy. I wasn't going to catch that fucking bastard with my boots on. So, yeah, he jumps off the I'm assuming, the roof of the car, tries to chase after this guy, kind of stumbles, and then takes the time to take his fucking boots off and then chase him.
Because, yeah, barefoot's definitely going to make you faster.
Through Australia.
Yeah, it's not rocky at all.
In the outback. Oh, that was a scorpion, and now you're dead.
Right.
Jesus Christ. Now, police were called, and Crabbe admitted to everything, describing the victims in the car as a pack of scumbags. He's not very smart. Crabbe later pleaded guilty to willful and malicious damage to the vehicle, and he was barred from the Three Ways Roadhouse.
I mean, fair enough.
Then on March 24th, 1983, at a roadhouse in Curtin Springs, this is about 85 kilometers or 60 miles east of Uluru, Crabbe got drunk and did it again. That night, there was a country western night going on, and Crabbe, who was drinking, got in an argument with a patron or patrons.
I have questions about what country western is like in Australia.
I actually have... Okay, wait for it. You just lined me up so well. I'm assuming it's normal country western and influenced by, you're probably getting a lot of American country artists that you're just kind of listening to or doing covers of. But I don't know, is there an Australian country scene? It makes sense if there is.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I'm just always curious about other countries' music scene.
I'd give it a shot.
Because, I know they have, their own pop stars and whatnot.
French metal, man. You want to go down a dark, weird road. French metal.
We saw French metal.
We did. They were fucking good. Offenhammer.
Yeah.
We got their t-shirts and then we left before Ale Storm fucking took the stage. Oh, they're chanting like pirates. We're out.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Because honestly, in my head, for this whole scene, I know it's country western, but I have AC/DC. If you want blood, you've got it in my head for this. Because... he's at this place, he starts a fight with a patron, or patrons, depending on the source. Bar staff intervened, and in no time, this was just a fight. The fight then moved outside, which it usually does, and Crabbe was eventually pinned to the pavement by the bar manager and several bar patrons.
That was a good night for Crabbe.
Right, absolutely. So, this is a usual night out for me. It's not just the staff, we've got patrons out there helping the staff. You're in the wrong when that's happening.
Yeah.
Now, in proper Australian form, Crabbe was told to calm down. And when he did, he was allowed to go back into the bar.
Well, you just need to calm down.
That was it. They let him up back on his feet, and they were basically like, Crabby, look, this is the middle of the fucking outback. There's nothing else to do. You gotta behave yourself, but you can come back in. So guess what happens as soon as he gets back in the bar? Starts a fight with the fucking patrons. Now he said, I went back in, I was totally fine, I sat in the corner and they started yelling shit and I yelled back.
Yeah.
But with this guy, I fucking doubt it. So there's another fight, Crabbe gets kicked out, he's now barred from this roadhouse.
I was just minding my business.
Yeah, I was being a good boy, obviously. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I hate drama, but it follows me.
It certainly follows Douglas Crabbe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now he's kicked out. He's going to be kicked out of every roadhouse in the outback.
Well, yeah, that is the path he is on.
That's quite the statement. On August 18th, 1983, Douglas Crabbe had spent the day delivering construction supplies to the Ullara site. When his deliveries were finished, he drove to Uluru and parked his 25-ton Mack truck with 2 trailers. He then walked about 500 meters or 500 yards to the inland motel to get a drink and something to eat. So, normal. As the night wore on, Crabbe, he started with a few drinks, and a few drinks became more. And the night's getting, it's dark now, and I'm doing my thing. It's August in Australia. It's winter, so it's cold and it's dark. And according to... I only found this in one source, but I find it fucking highly interesting. So later, when Crabbe goes to prison, he gets married in prison. And this woman in an interview says that Crabbe told her that he was also wasted on amphetamines.
I could see that, though.
That makes this so much clearer. It makes it make so much more sense. Because earlier in the day, everyone who saw Crabbe was like, he was in a good mood. He was fine. But as the night wore on, he started getting a little belligerent. Nothing like a belligerent drunk.
Right.
Bernadette Schiller.
Ripped on amphetamine.
Yeah, with a lot of booze in ya. So Bernadette Schiller was the woman who described Crabbe as having a filthy temper. She was 20 years old at the time, and she worked at a nearby motel. She had knocked off of work and went to the inland motel for a drink, and that's when she ran into Crabbe. Now, there are a couple differing... One account says she had just gotten off work and had her first drink and ran into Crabbe, and this happened. Another says that it was a couple hours after. There are some discrepancies on timing, but once again, this is a bunch of people probably drinking quite hard in a bar. No one's keeping that close an eye on times.
No.
So, yeah. Anyway. She would later recall, quote, that she ran into Crabbe at the inland, and then, quote, he'd pinched me on the bum that night. He was scaring the hell out of me and being really disgusting. I told him to fuck off. It was the first time I'd ever said that to someone. Straight after that, he was behind the bar helping himself to a drink, and then he took a swing at the barman. For years I have felt guilty. Is that what set him off? I still have issues with that. Others recall that when he was refused a drink, he called the bartender a bitch, quote, threw at least one stubby. Stubbies are the little stubby... You remember stubby beer bottles? Where they had the really fat shoulder and the really tiny neck? That's a stubby, and I just had to add that because, once again, in a court document, threw at least one stubby and went behind the bar to serve himself. 2 of the staff at a bar random, so another bar patron, just a person there, wrestled him to the floor, with one of them putting him into a headlock in the process. He was told to leave the bar, and he begrudgingly complied. The best guess for this is that it's about midnight.
Hey everybody, we've got yet another true crime podcast to tell you about.
But this one is different. Really?
That's right. I'm Bill.
And I'm Paul. And we are crimes, killers, cults,
and beer.
True crime stories told by 2 crazy Florida men.
Do you want a podcast that does well-researched deep dives on topics?
Do you want a podcast that doesn't take itself seriously and at the same time ridicules the bad guys relentlessly?
Do you want a somber tone podcast that just spouts the facts and literally nothing else?
Yes.
Nope, that's not us. You'll get the deep dive, sure, and you'll get lots of facts, but you'll laugh too.
Because you need to laugh. And when you're listening to stories about horrific monsters like Carl Pandram, Peter Curtin, and cults like Heaven's Gate and Warren Jeffs of the FLDS.
Some of them make it easy to make fun of them because of their utter stupidity, like BTK and the Pizza Bomber. Others we have to work at, but either way, you're going to get a well-researched story every time.
You'll also get crazy old Florida stories that you may not have heard before, like the murderous mayor of Cedar Key, William Cottrell, and misguided antics of a Florida bootlegging gang, the Ashleys, and the original Florida cracker, Bone Mazel.
Bone Mazel. So give us a listen wherever you get your podcast. We're also on YouTube and social media. Links to everything is on our website, ckcbpodcast.com. So check it out. That's crimes, killers, cults,
and beer.
Now, this is the part that I found really interesting. Remember how in the fetal abduction, I was like, well, this makes sense. These are women who have infertility problems and the toll it takes on their mental health. They eventually hit a place where they crack and they do something terrible. And that wasn't it at all. Well, guess what? I had one of those moments with this, because I thought, okay, drunk Australian with rage problems gets kicked out of bar, walks to his truck, just jams it into said bar. Nope, because there's at least 40 minutes and possibly upwards of an hour between the time Douglas Crabbe is kicked out of the bar and the time he comes back with his truck.
That's a long time to go off and stew about it.
It is. Now, he does have to do a couple things beforehand, but, you know. First, Crabbe walked back to his truck and drove it to another nearby motel. So that was 500 meters to walk to his truck. I mean, it takes what? Most people walk at about 4 kilometers an hour?
About 8 minutes.
Yeah. So say 8 minutes for that. He drives to the nearby motel, and here, despite being drunk, obviously, he had the wherewithal to disconnect his second trailer, so it's just the cab now and one trailer. This is not an easy thing to do. Even if you're a trucker from the age of 14, after a couple drinks at midnight, getting close to 1 a.m., you know, in the dark, in the outback, this is not a simple thing to do.
Yeah, it's not just unclip.
Reason I bring it up is because from this moment on, Crabbe says he has no memory of what happens. I remember driving to the motel. I remember unhitching the trailer. After that, I have nothing. All right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, according to a witness named Martin Fisher, who was apparently outside because he saw the truck coming, quote, Crabbe then maneuvered the 25-ton semi and trailer at speed around a blind bend, through a car park, around a minibus, turned and drove it through the brick wall into the crowded bar, crushing the people there.
That's pretty precise driving.
Yep. Around a blind bend, through a car park, and apparently around this minibus.
At speed.
There's another description where basically the description is it looked like he didn't see the minibus, and then he did, and he fucking avoided it with a giant 25-ton Mack truck going at speed.
Which isn't easy.
No, he's a good truck driver. I hate to say it.
Yeah, this wasn't a fucking motorbike.
No. By the time Crabbe's truck came to a stop, it had penetrated the entire length of the building, with, like I mentioned at the start, its butt end still kind of sticking out. Now, the truck remained in place after the impact with the motor still running, and the damage to the building was so bad, the only thing holding the roof up was the truck. Yeah. And as this was the middle of the Australian outback, it took hours for proper medical help to arrive.
Of course it did.
As such, the survivors were left to take care of the injured for hours before help arrived, and they actually turned basically a room that was adjoining to the bar. They just turned that into the clinic/triage.
I mean, that makes sense.
But still, you just lived through that, and now you have to deal with... Oh, man, no.
Do I have to?
At the time, it's estimated that fewer than 50 people were in the inland bar at the time, and many of those inside were obviously workers from the area. Now, I bring this up for 2 points. Like I mentioned, we have 5 dead, 16 heavily wounded. That's 21 of less than 50.
So, you know, half.
It's bad. The other part is because this place is so small, I fucking guarantee, And Crabbe was in there, too. He knew these people.
Oh, yeah.
He probably knew every last one of them. And knowing them, he still did this. Like, this, if it was a bunch of strangers, I'm not saying I get it, but it makes more sense. But you fucking piece... You bastard.
It's more detached if it's a bunch of strangers. But if it's people you know, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I get you.
Now, Bernadette Schiller, she was the 20-year-old who we mentioned, Crabbe grabbed her butt and then kind of went off. She's also the one who described him as having a filthy temper. She's got some wild eyewitness shit. So, quote, somebody yelled something out and I was at the jukebox and I sort of glanced out the window expecting to see somebody or someone maybe peeing on the tree. And there was just a truck coming straight at us. He was gearing down and revved it up and straight through the inland. The truck went right through the wall, through the bar. I didn't even have time to react. It just crushed through the place. I was thrown to the floor and I remember the wheels were millimeters from me. I was in the fetal position trying to get away from the wheels. The noise was unbelievable and people were screaming. It was just awful. After all these years, it is so fresh in my mind. It seriously was like a bomb going off. I got hit by the bull bar, which is what they call like a push bar.
Yeah.
And thrown away. I can recall every detail of that night. Smells, sounds, terror, and the image of my friend's brain matter on me will be with me forever. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep.
It was just dust, debris, blood. In this, Schiller suffered broken ribs, urinated blood for 6 months, and was bruised, quote, black and blue from shoulder to ankle from where she had been hit by the bull bar.
Have you seen Gordon Ramsay?
No.
Speaking of...
Oh, God.
He was in a bike accident. And he fucking was talking about, always wear your helmet. Because he did a TikTok about it.
Oh,
lifted
God.
up his fucking chef jacket. And, the shade of purple...
Yeah.
Was this color.
Yeah.
I mean, from the top of his pants, so I don't even want to know where it ended.
Yeah.
But to however fucking...
Not great.
Yeah, no. So I'm just imagining that this woman looked fucking
very similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds very similar.
Yeah. That looked like... Even talking about it, he was still, his hands still shaking. You can tell he's lucky to be alive. She's lucky to be alive. Because you don't think about how fucking bad that can fuck you up internally.
Oh, my God, yeah. Now, Schiller continued, quote, I'd also been talking to an older couple during the night. After the truck came through, I saw the man. He had a cut on his head, and I remember I had a pad in my bag, and I took it out and used it to stop the bleeding. I asked if there was anything else I could do, and he just said, my wife's dead. Now, I'm almost 100% sure of this, but this is Ronald Slynn, a building manager from the Ulara construction site. His wife, 45-year-old Patricia Slynn, was found face down and half underneath the truck. She had been killed instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, instantly is what you want in this scenario. You don't want the long suffering.
Yeah. No, I mean, one person of the 5-1 we're going to get to makes it to Alice Springs but dies on the operating table. So not too much suffering,
Still, though.
Yeah. Now, the assistant commissioner of the Northern Territory Police was a man named Mark McAdie, and he was apparently close on him because he ends up there within minutes. So I think he's actually posted there. He had to be, because the closest thing is Alice Springs, 300 fucking kilometers away.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And he pretty much instantly realized this was no accident. He later said, quote, from the tire marks on the gravel and on the concrete floor, I knew the truck hadn't braked before it hit the pub. It had actually accelerated. It was a scene of absolute carnage. You can imagine, he'd driven his truck into what was a crowded bar at a hotel, and it was a very small bar as well. The actual room that he drove into was only about 2.5 times the size of the prime mover that he'd driven into it. Now, I think he's accounting for some width there, seeing how it hits the opposite wall, but... Yeah. Now, after the truck came to a stop, it was observed that Crabbe hopped out of the cab of his truck and just started for the exit.
I'm out.
As he did, a man only described as Mr. Hannigan, and I fucking looked for this guy's name. In the court documents, it's literally just Mr. Hannigan. All right. Mr. Hannigan was trapped under some debris just behind, like, the tires of the truck. And when he saw Crabbe get out of the cab, he asked him for help. And multiple people, including Mr. Hannigan, saw Crabbe take the time to look down at him, smile, and walk away.
Nice guy.
So then he went on the run, and somehow he made it through a night in the fucking outback, because he's arrested the next morning in Ulara. So he covered that 14 kilometers, 7.5 miles in the dark through the outback and made it to that construction site.
That's not unimpressive.
He was found by the catering manager of the entire construction site. And one of the first things this guy, like, obviously he's like, hey, didn't you drive a fucking truck? Because obviously news spreads fast even in the middle of the night.
Yeah, especially that kind of news.
Yeah, and this guy we're going to find out really knew, because, like, he's like, okay, so you did that. I'm going to call the police. And as they sat waiting, Crabbe asked, well, how much damage did I do? And to this, the catering manager told him at the time he had killed 4 people because the 5th hadn't died yet, and one of those killed was, quote, one of my boys from the kitchen.
Your lucky catering manager didn't come with a knife.
Yes.
I've met catering managers.
Oh, God, anyone dealing with the culinary, yeah, don't fuck with them. Obviously,
He says to his wife with the culinary degree.
I mean, this will be a horrible thing to say, but obviously he wasn't that good in the kitchen, because this guy doesn't seem that broken up about it. If he's a good prep cook, it's like, seriously?
Yeah, right?
He's the
You don't
only
wanna
one who
waste
can
time.
handle a fucking knife, and you had to kill him.
Son of a bitch.
Son of a fuck. Now, 4 people had been killed at the scene. These were David Seng, who was 24, Adrian Dernan, who was 21, Helen Fuller, who was 22, and Patricia Slynn, who was 45. Leslie McKay Ramsey, who was 35. Sorry, did I say Patricia Slynn was 45 or 35?
45.
Okay, she is 45. Leslie McKay Ramsey, who was 35, would later die in hospital in Alice Springs. So those are your 5 dead. The trial of Douglas Crabbe began... The trial of Douglas Crabbe began in October 1983, and to be perfectly blunt, he was absolutely fucked. Like, it's your truck, mate. People saw you get out of it.
Yeah, you're pretty fucked.
That's not gonna go over well. Oh man, it didn't help that one of the first things that the prosecution did was play a video showing the aftermath of Crabbe's attack at the Inland Motel. And this video was fucking rough. I obviously couldn't see the actual video, but here's the description. It showed clothes and boots embedded into the ground where they had been run over.
Oh, God.
Then there was the heavily blood-stained bull bar from which the officer who took the video said many of the dead had been pulled. To this, Crabbe just sat expressionless, no reaction whatsoever.
Well, of course not.
Now, he had little to offer in his defense. Like I mentioned, he just says, as soon as I went to unhitch the one trailer, I don't remember a fucking thing. It's complete blank.
I'm innocent.
Now, I have my own theory.
The booze did it.
This is early 1980s, Australia. This is the heyday of AC/DC. Now, some places say it was on August 19th, so the day after, like, you know, the morning of this attack, that AC/DC released their studio album, Flick of the Switch. But if you look a little deeper, the Australian release was on August 15th. This happened on August 18th, 19th. Flick of the Switch is a terrible fucking album. And I personally believe that Crabbe had listened to it for the last couple days and just got himself pitched into this fucking rage where he was just ready, just triggered for fucking anything. And I'm just going to go over I don't know how, but something's going to do it because this album is shit, man.
I could see that.
I kind of, you know, I was looking for the AC/DC tie-in with this Australian early 80s, and I realized, wow, Flick of the Switch came out 4 days before this. Or like 3, actually. That's rough.
It made him go crazy.
It's a bad fucking album, man. I will defend AC/DC, but...
A good defense attorney would have used this as a defense.
They really didn't have much to work with. They laid into, he doesn't remember.
No, I know, but you can, like, you have to go for mental illness, and at least here you've got, well, they drove him crazy.
Because, I mean, AC/DC is fucking huge, and people were pissed at this album.
Oh, hey there. You like true crime stories, right? Yeah, I know, who doesn't? But I gotta admit, after a while, those stories of murder and heartache, well, they tend to go straight to my hips. So that's why I, Leroy Luna, have created a podcast called Excuse Me, That's Illegal, where we'll take a hardcore look at some softcore crimes. No TED Talks on Bundy here. The letters BTK won't be coming from these lips. Unless he had a brother that used to steal library books. Suppose I'd be willing to go balls deep into that one if that were the case. Anyways, you'll hear stories such as the Mad Pooper, a female jogger who wreaked havoc in a Colorado Springs neighborhood, using one family's front yard as her own personal dumping grounds. If this kind of content sounds like it's up your alley, Excuse Me, That's Illegal is available right now on all your favorite podcatchers. So come join me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
Now, Crabbe was convicted on all 5 counts of murder by a jury, and this actually became a huge case in Australian state law about basically, what am I trying to say here? I know there's an actual term for it, but is it manslaughter or is it murder? Culpability of that. Did you do something stupid that killed someone, but a normal person would have been like, I don't know. That usually doesn't kill someone. Or did you do something you should have fucking known was going to kill people, and it killed people?
Right.
So that's how this ends up being murder, and it really is a pivotal case in Australian law. Like,
yeah, because you should know that driving a truck, a semi, into a fucking tiny-ass building, it's going to kill people.
Well, like you said earlier, it's not a motorcycle. It's not even a car.
Exactly.
It's a giant fucking land train.
Yeah. Come the fuck on.
Yeah, you should have known, and I absolutely agree with that. Now, unfortunately, there was an appeal, and it turned out there were some... It gets very finicky, but there were some problems with the first trial, so that verdict is thrown out, and there's a second trial, and guess what? Found guilty all over again, so there you fucking go.
As he should be.
Yeah. Now, I also like I mentioned, he never admits that alcohol affects him in any way. The alcohol doesn't affect me.
Oh, no.
And kind of in this same vein, Crabbe completely refused to take any responsibility for his crimes.
Was me.
And multiple times, from what I read, it really looked like the prosecution was softballing questions to him, pretty much designed to get him to say, yeah, I guess I should have realized that was going to kill someone. But on 3 occasions when this happened, Crabbe, he responded this way. First time, I don't consider myself capable of doing something like that. The second time, I still don't believe that I'd be capable of doing something like that. The third time, I don't feel I'd be capable of doing such a thing. It's completely against me, you know.
But you literally did it, yo.
It's your truck. You did it. People saw you get out of the truck and smile at one of your victims.
Yeah, motherfucker.
Yeah. So, there's that. So this also gets a little dicey because he gets life for this, but then in 2004, the Northern Territory says, life imprisonment, no more. We're not doing this anymore. All life is commuted to 25. I thought it was funny. For Douglas Crabbe, though, they decided to bump that up to 30. And if my reading's correct, he's the only person who had that. Like, no, you stay a little longer, you prick.
We don't like him.
In 2005, Crabbe was transferred to the Acacia prison near Perth, Australia, to be closer to his family, because that's where he's originally from. Then in 2013, Crabbe was up for parole for the first time. This application was denied after survivors definitely voiced their displeasure with the idea of Crabbe being free.
Yeah.
But 3 years later, in 2016, Crabbe was up again, because in Australia, once you hit a certain point, you automatically get a parole hearing every 3 years.
I mean, that makes sense. I'm pretty sure it's similar in
Most places, I think, have something like that. And this parole application got a little chippy. Once again, survivors went to the press to voice their opinion on Crabbe getting parole. But for some reason, Douglas Crabbe's son, who is a crab, sorry buddy, but you're a dick, Anthony Crabbe, decided to get involved with one of the most vocal survivors, in particular, Lydia Hanna. In June 2016, Anthony Crabbe posted this on social media. The bitch is at it again. Front page of the news, this woman is still going on about losing her friends at Inland Motel in 1983. Why were you drinking at the time of night? Get on with your life, lady. We are sick of your shit. I tried to do that with this little... There's no punctuation here. This is just one...
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Just a fucking idiot yelling on the internet.
Exactly. When he was questioned by the press about this post, like, dude, did you really do that? Anthony doubled down with, quote, there is one woman, I'm not going to run her down, she has genuine grief for what happened, get over it, it was 33 years ago. He continued, we've been level with this just as long as those victims. My father was a model prisoner in Darwin, blah, 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 and he goes on about how, like, He's been a great prisoner, and this has affected us all, and blah, blah, blah. He's a shell of a man now, but he's got a heart of gold. I wish people could see that. It's been hell on our family as well, all these years. Yeah. So, that's what Anthony Crabbe has to say. You fucking bitch, get over it. That's in June 2016. July 2016, a month later, Anthony had more to say.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
What does the philosopher have to...
Get ready for this. Quote, I'd like to apologize personally to her, meaning Lydia Hanna, and say sorry, meet her, and give her a cuddle, and really say sorry.
Ew. Ew.
Mm-hmm.
Ew.
This is why I fucking hate this guy. You're worse than your father. You're an absolute piece of shit.
Ew.
That's fucking gross and creepy on so many fucking levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is disturbing.
Give you a fucking cuddle. Give you a Picton cuddle with a fucking broomstick up your nose from a guy named Spike.
Yeah, right.
Don't know if everyone's caught that news, but Robert Picton was killed in prison with a sharpened broomstick through the nose, delivered by a guy nicknamed Spike, who had a history of violence against other inmates.
Just coincidence.
Was Picton going to talk by any chance? So unfortunately for the Crabbes, Douglas's parole was denied again in 2016. But I found this funny. This was despite a recommendation from the parole board that he be released.
Well, they're sick of him.
I mean, he's old now. Finally, in 2023, West Australia's Attorney General John Quigley approved a recommendation for the Prisoners Review Board for Douglas Crabbe, who is now 77, to be considered for a pre-release resocialization program. So, yeah, it looks like they're going to let him out to die, pretty much. And that's the story of Douglas Crabbe. Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, that's
I hate his son.
His son's worse than him.
Yeah.
Yeah. This guy got drunk, did too many amphetamines, and did something really stupid. Now, you should have fucking stepped up and said that.
Yeah.
But he seems to be one of those people who thinks it's worse to say, I was fucked up and did something stupid, than to admit you were fucked up.
Yeah.
And there are people like that.
Oh my God, yeah.
Really, people, no, the alcohol didn't affect me at all. Dude, you pulled your dick out and fought like a bunch of fucking people at the bar. Well, it wasn't the liquor. Then what was it?
Right.
But he seems like one of those, because I really feel like if his defense would have been like, look, I was on some fucking trucker amphetamines, I drank too much, everything got mixed up in my head, and I did something incredibly fucking stupid, he'd be free right now.
Yep.
Or at least parole free.
Oh, exactly.
And probably would have been for quite a while.
Yeah, he probably would have gotten a lesser sentence.
I mean, they wouldn't have attacked that extra. Everyone else goes
You know
from
what I
life.
mean? Like, he still would have gotten jail time, but I don't think he would have necessarily gotten as harsh a penalty if he had stepped up and been like, oh yeah, fuck no, I got fucking wasted.
Yeah.
And
I was heavily affected by drugs that night. I did something incredibly stupid. I did.
yeah,
But it was drug fueled.
yeah.
Because there is also that difference between saying it was the liquor and like I was fueled by liquor, but I did something really bad.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, that is the Douglas Crabbe. And I was going to do a different Australian massacre, which is just as fucking nuts. It's called the Huddle Street Massacre. It's literally just a fucking dude walking down the street shooting the fuck out of people. And shooting at random cars, like, yeah, just one of those. And then I ran into this and was like, oh my god. And like I mentioned, there are a lot of pictures for this one, which I am actually going to put on our Facebook group, which I never do. And I'm going to try to get better about that. Because this one's got a lot. So how you feeling?
Good. How you feel?
Not bad. How's your throat?
Not terrible.
Excellent. I was very hopeful about that. If you like that story, feel free to rate, review, or follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever you use. You use some type of app to listen to us. Hopefully this isn't being beamed directly into your brain. If it is, let us know. We should definitely know about that. Someone should. But all that helps a bunch, or you can just tell people about our bullshit. We have merch at PSCats at Redbubble. That stands for Paint Splatter Cats. You can find all my wife's lovely, lovely art, because she's a highly skilled artist, at Paint Splatter Cats on like all the social media platforms.
This is fact.
This is fact.
That is my username everywhere. I don't know about talent.
You've won awards. You've had shows. You've sold bits. In every way, that's talent.
Stop saying fact.
I just want that pause, that silence to be there. Processing. God damn it.
I can't argue facts.
We also have a Patreon, which I'll also put more pictures on, because I'm going to try to get more into that.
Yeah,
you know, make it more worthwhile. We got a little sidetrack. We had medical shit, you know.
I've been dying for the last 6 months, to be honest.
Shit happens, but somehow we still have patrons. Thank you very much to Kat Roop Wagner, Kat Roop Wagner's hilarious son, Melissa Jusic, and Nathan Lucas. As always, thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.
Unless my wifey has anything to add.
I got nothing.
Until next time, have fun and play safe.
Bye.
Bye.